Welcome to another interview in our FM Expert series. Today you will see that I am joined by three wonderful people. I've got Sajna Rahman, who is a transformational coach. Hi, Sajna.
Hi.
We've got Dele Agunpopo, who's a Workplace Team Lead at Pareto FM. Good to see you, Dele.
Okay.
And then we've got Reo Wright, who is an account manager at Integral. Thanks for joining us, Reo.
Evening.
So we wanted to do this conversation following actually when Sajna and I did our first interview. And one of the points that I made to Sajna was that when I was looking at my LinkedIn connections and looking at who I could invite to this interview series, it really struck me that so many of my LinkedIn connections, and we're talking thousands of people, were white. And Sajna and I did our first interview together, and I made the point, and she said, Beth, thank God somebody's actually saying this. We need to have a conversation around this. And Dele and Reo, you are clients of Sajna's with the Think, Transform and Thrive program that Sajna runs. And Sajna said, let's just bring everyone together and let's have a chat about it. So I'm really pleased we can do this. It's fantastic. And we've got a lot to get through. I think for anyone watching, it's probably not going to be a 10-minute one. It's probably going to be a bit longer, but I think it's such an important subject that we talk about. And we are going to start with the term BAME. And just before we started recording, I made the point to the guys about how do you feel about the term. And Sajna, start us off on your thoughts around the term, and guys, chip in if you want to.
Well, first and foremost, I never really liked it when I first came across it. I never really liked it. BAME, it's lazy, you know, to be frank, it's lazy. It's putting together groups of people that are non-white, and then it's sort of contradicting because you've got the Irish community, you've got the Eastern European community in there, so it's really pointless. In the past, I went along with it, and the reason why I went along with it is it's a way of capturing data and stats and things like that. But the more and more people are openly talking about on the back of what's happening with Black Lives Matters, I think it's really important to really change the narrative now. And when I speak about Black people, I actually include myself. Yeah. Because supporting Black, I'm supporting all underrepresented as well. So I, as a rule of thumb, I no longer use BAME.
Okay, Dele and Reo, how about you guys? Reo, go on.
It's a term that I only came across a few months ago myself as well. So I've never noticed it in the industry. And then I heard it, and I had to ask what the acronym means at first. And it for me, it's just grouping everything together, and it can be used as something. BAME is fine, you can use it as, but that's not Black Lives Matter. That's something completely different. Yeah. Because that's one thing within itself, and that is a representation of everybody that's non-white for me. And Black Lives Matter is a representation of Black people. Okay. So they're two separate things for me. So if you're driving a narrative that's going to be pushing Black Lives Matter, then that needs to be something that's separate to what BAME means, because they're two completely different things in my opinion.
And that's interesting because already that's a slight difference in interpretation, but that's again the point of having the conversation, because we all see things differently. Dele, anything to add into that?
Yeah, I mean with BAME, I don't know where it came from. I don't know where this acronym came from. Just like Rhea, I've heard it, I've seen it being used in articles, and I've been seeing it being used in the workplace, especially in HR, and I just never knew what it actually meant. And when it was explained to me, I was just like, you're putting people in a category. Yeah. Instead of putting everyone into one as human beings, you're separating. You're doing the opposite as what you want to do. So companies are using it as a statistic, as Sajna said. Companies are using it to provide their statistics. So we need to go for more BAME people. Literally just BAME people. You know, we need to get our statistics up to a certain level of BAME people. You know, and it's like, oh, I'm a BAME person now. I'm not even a human being. I'm a BAME person. Yeah. I'm different to that person. I'm BAME. Like, okay, I've just been put into a category. Even worse, like, you know. So it's. I can, on the other side, I can see, you know, where they're coming from with it, but it's just not the right approach, in my opinion. You know, BAME is just. It's literally just segregating us even more than we already, you know, it's just like, BAME, you guys are over there. There's the white man, and then there's BAME. We look after the BAME people as well. So yeah, I'm not really for it, to be honest.
Okay, I think that's a really, really important point to have made. And I, you know, on the news, for example, I listen to LBC quite a lot, talk radio, and that's the term they will use forever. So it started before Black Lives Matter and has continued through. And every time I hear it, I just don't like it. So it's interesting to hear your guys' perspective. The whole point of these videos is about workplace, and we're talking about facilities management. So let's talk about representation within the facilities management industry. I've talked about my experience of looking through my LinkedIn contacts and just going white face, white face, white face. I'm interested from the three of you, your perspective of being somebody without a white face coming into an industry. Does it feel welcoming? Has it felt, you know, what does it feel like from your perspective? And Reo, let's start with you.
So I've joined as an engineer originally, and I've been promoted through the ranks. And you feel okay as an engineer. Yeah. So I look around and there are some other black faces and that, and then I got promoted to supervisor, and I look around and they start to dwindle out a little bit more, and there's a few black faces as supervisors. And then I went into contract management, and I've worked for a few different companies as well, large organizations, and the black faces just dwindle out to just myself, and sometimes there might be one other, to the point where I'll be mistaken for the other black guy, and we don't look nothing alike at all. Our skin complexions are completely different, and I've had conversations with these people. And even more so, I'm standing next to somebody who I know, and we're having a conversation, and he mentions, "Oh, you're not in IT," talking about the other black guy, and we're in the middle of having a conversation. And it's so strange that how that mistake can be made, and it's not somebody trying to be nasty, or they're trying to be, he's not trying to do anything, but we're all on a social event at work on a night out, and I still have to be reminded that I'm, if not the only black person, or me and one other is a black person. So I'm on a night out with all of my colleagues, we're celebrating success for the year, and I still have to be reminded that I'm a black man. Yeah. So that's part of what goes on, is you don't get away from those reminders. And one of the things I didn't mention before as well is there's hardship that comes with it, and these could be my own hang-ups, and Dele, you may feel this and that. There's a perception of black people in terms of, and that probably comes from the Caribbean side of things, where everything is a little bit on a slower time clock. So if I'm going to be late, if I'm late as a black man, I feel really bad. So I feel like I'm watched so much, and I feel like I could maybe get away with it even more if I wasn't, because you can walk into a meeting and be the only black person there, but to be the only black person there that was late, or that didn't have this, or didn't have their pen, or didn't answer the right question, you always feel like you're under the microscope. And it's when you may hear black people say you feel like you have to work harder. When people are saying that, those are the things that you're saying. And it's not doing the job, because everybody wants to do the job and you want to do your best at the job. It's how much you're under the microscope for when you make a mistake or slip up. And everybody does, everybody makes mistakes, everybody slips up. But when you're in front of everybody, you'll always feel like after you made the mistake, oh, I was the black guy that made the mistake, rather than I was just the guy that made the mistake. And that's because you're so underrepresented. So it might be you, or you and one other. Yeah. And then people might not remember which one of you it was as well. So it's that side of the representation that's there. And then you look forward. For me, I look forward at more senior positions, and I don't see the representation as well. So it's to aspire. If I'm looking at aspiring, it's hard to see, because there's not a face that I see that's like myself.
Yeah. Dele, what were you going to say?
Just to touch on the point that Reo made about black people having to work harder. I would describe myself as someone who knows that already. From a young age, I know I have to be one of the hardest workers in the room. And lucky, you know, I've been in FM for coming up to 3 years now. So I'm a baby. I'm a baby in FM. And
well, compared to us old farts, you are.
Speak for yourselves.
Do you know what? lucky enough, I was introduced to FM through Pareto. Such a wonderfully, I'm not going to go into them too much. It's wonderful, right? And I first started off being introduced through Sajna and Andrew's program, Tomorrow Meets Today.
Yeah. And
that was, that gave me the opportunity to meet leaders and other people in the industry that I would never have the opportunity of meeting.
Yeah.
And at that point, I wasn't really too sure what FM was, but just seeing, all the different faces, all the different people from different diverse backgrounds, just seeing all of them in one room was amazing for me. But for me, I always knew that I have to be the hardest worker in the room. And I think that is being recognized through Pareto. They are seeing that I'm a hard worker. But behind that, it doesn't just come from anywhere. It's because I know that the perception of a black man, the perception of especially young black men, are very negative. Before I even said a word, there's always there's a prejudice about black men. That they're drug dealers or whatever, rap art, whatever. There's always a prejudice, and any place that I go into, I know that my first objective is to defeat that perception.
Yeah.
No matter who I meet, I don't even know your name, but before I've even said a word, you're going to know that I'm not that perception that you have. Yeah. So I think that's something that's been recognized in Pareto, and through the FM for me.
You see sorry, Dele, you see what's funny about that is you might have a certain part of you from where you've grown up, and you have to suppress that so much when you're at work. And I know everybody has a professional version of themselves, and when they're at home or when they're around their friends or when they're amongst their family, they're all slightly different as well. But you have to turn it off so much.
Give us an example. Give us an example, Reo.
What of how I would turn it off? I wouldn't.
Practice, yeah.
Right. So someone is going to look at me. So one of the things that I notice is I drive a BMW, and I don't like going to a meeting or going somewhere and people seeing me in my car because of the stereotype of what I would have in that. So I'm cautious of that. I'm cautious of the music that I'm playing when I turn up to a meeting. So it's those things that I'm cautious.
I'm not going to at any point in these conversations try and undermine the points you're making, and I'm stopping myself from saying things because I'm respecting exactly what you're saying. But it's the same similar principle in that, like you guys were saying, Dele, you were saying about you'll try harder. Because you don't want to be seen differently. So, 23 years ago when I started working in FM as a woman, I was saying to Sajna before, people saw me as a girl, and I had to prove myself over and over again that I could do the job even though I was a girl. So I'm empathizing to the small degree that I can with that. And again, with client sites, I go to client sites and I think about what I'm driving, and like you say, am I listening to the radio or am I playing loud music? But you're doing this in every element of your lives every day, aren't you? And and I think it's important we hear that, and we hear what it's like, because people don't understand it, do they?
No, well, to work hard and then have things and achieve things, and feel like you can't even go past so I don't want to stray from the point, but I can't even drive next to the police and feel like I'm noticed. So I want to tone myself a little bit down. I want to turn my music down, maybe roll my windows up and not feel like I'm enjoying myself in something that I like to do. I like to play loud music. I like to drive my car, but I'll drive next to the police and feel like I have to tone myself down.
And here's the thing, you guys put me nicely into what I'm about to say as well. The biggest disability that we can have is a bad mindset. It's not our physical body, it's not the color of our skin that is holding us back, it is our mindset. And it's really great that you mentioned glass ceilings, and you mentioned what you were taught when you were young, because we are crippled by limiting beliefs. We are absolutely crippled by them. And most of us don't even know we have them. But for you to go back, realizing as you were growing up that, you know, black men should work harder. I've had similar, if you're an Asian woman, you have to work twice as hard, 100 times hard, whatever. And then suddenly people are starting to talk about glass ceiling when I was progressing in my career. And people who know me, and I did mention it, and guys, I did send you a clip of an interview that I did. I said, what glass ceiling? There is no glass ceiling. And I think that is the power of the mind. When people start talking about glass ceilings, we put that image of a glass ceiling in our minds, and that is what becomes our limiting beliefs. Yeah. And we'll always see that. I would love for people to lose that and see no glass ceiling and build that confidence in themselves and unlearn all the stuff that they got programmed within growing up. That is my mission in life, to wake people up. And I want white people to recognize these limitations, these social conditioning that black men may be facing, or women, you know, underrepresented people, you know, there's like social conditioning. All you got to do is have that compassion and understand.
So let's talk about that, because I think part of the issue is, well, I say part of the issue is communication, isn't it, and understanding. So it's from both sides. It's from a white person's understanding of all the things you guys have said, and the challenges you've had, and what you believe the perception is, and what in some cases the perception really is. And it's a communication of two ways. And Dele, before we started recording, you were talking about the fact that it's important to acknowledge there's potentially an issue here. So I'll give you the floor for a sec.
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole Black Lives Matter movement was literally to raise awareness of the issue of institutionalized racism. Point blank, full stop. That is literally what it is to do. To raise the awareness, just to let people know that there is an issue at hand. And people already know there's an issue, but people are just turning a blind eye at it, knowing that, you know what, this doesn't affect me personally, so I'm not going to be included in it. I'm not going to put myself in it. It's nothing to do with me. But what I was saying to you is, the statement as to be silent is to be complicit is something that's been ringing around for the past 4 or 5 months right now, since the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And it's something which companies and businesses have been noticing within themselves. They've taken a step back and they realize that, okay, this doesn't necessarily affect me, or me as a person, or me as my business, but it's affecting my colleague, it's affecting my friend. So I'm not going to stand there and say, okay, no, that's not nothing to do with me anymore. I'm going to show you that I support this, and I'm going to show you and say, I'm not going to be silent on this anymore. Loads of companies have put out statements, and that's where it starts. This is why this year for me is different, because there was always, as Reo said, it comes up and then it dies back down again. It comes up and it dies back down again. This specific movement is a bit different, because we've got million pound organizations coming involved and saying, yes, we aren't perfect. Yeah, we haven't been perfect, but we're ready to learn. We're ready to educate ourselves on the issue at hand. And that's all that we're asking for, you know. Understand and acknowledge us, because you're making us think that we're crazy, that there's nothing happening. You're making us think, oh, this doesn't exist. We're all human beings. We can see that this exists. Yeah. For you to say that, for me as a black man to say that there is racism in the workspace, and for you as my white colleague not to say anything about it, I'm fighting my own battles. Like, okay, fair enough. But this year is different. It is, everyone is involved. Everyone can see that other human beings, fellow human beings, are being discriminated against, and the changes are going to happen if it's just us and our voices. Everyone needs to be involved. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dele. This one for me, and as we said, they come and then they go, they come and they go. Yeah. This one feels different for me. This time it does feel different. This time it's got more momentum. This time it's all over the place. When I saw people marching in Australia, marching in China, and I love football to pieces. And when I see that little Black Lives Matter logos and Black Lives Matter on their shirts, it's amazing to see, because to grow up and feel so underrepresented, to then seeing that
all right, no, we do matter. And it's not, and one thing that people do need to understand, 100% all lives do matter.
Yeah.
And when we say Black Lives Matter, it's not that we matter more, just include us in all lives. Because that's what people don't understand, but that's what people are missing is, at the moment, we do not feel included. When you say all lives matter, we feel like our lives are not part of that. That's why we're saying Black Lives Matter. That's what the difference is. Yeah, so
and I think, Reo, people like me need you to say that, because when I say all lives matter, I think of everybody, but what you're saying is some people don't. And or even from your point of view, you're saying you feel that doesn't include you, which is why it explicitly needs to be said. And that's why, going back to Dele's point, this stuff has to be talked about, because you can't empathise and understand somebody else until you talk to them and say, you know, what's important to you, what's going on with you. Just ask all of you. I know, Dele, you said this has happened with you, but since the Black Lives Matter movement, have you had more white colleagues, and Sajna and Reo, I'll direct this towards you, have you had more white friends, colleagues talking to you and saying, what does this mean for you, and talk to me about it? Has it opened up a discussion? I'll start, Reo, start with you.
So at the time of the George Floyd incident, it hit me quite hard. And I was working from home at the time, pretty isolated in that sense. And anyone that I was having conversations with, and I say any of my colleagues, and that like majority of them are white people as well. So if someone was asking how I was, I felt no way to say, this is how I'm feeling, because this is what's going on for me at the moment. And the conversation opened up. I went to go and see my team. I bought them some lunch and we all sat down and we spoke about it. And I went home driving back feeling really good. And feeling really good about the conversations that we've had. And then even myself as the representation, they're all my staff, and they're all older than me, and they're all white people. And I'm been put in a position, so I have to recognise that things have come a certain way, and I'm in a certain position. But that gives me the ability to have that conversation. If I wasn't their manager, though, would I have been able to open up that conversation? And I probably would have, being my character, but someone else, the black man next to me, would he be able to open up that conversation if that's what he wants to talk about at work? And that's the thing, not everybody has the confidence to do that, and not everybody feels like they can. So therefore they're suffering in silence, because they can't talk about what's going on at work for them and how they feel in the workplace. So they can go home and talk to their friends, but they don't work in our industry. So their friends are not going to understand it or understand how they feel in our industry. So that's why it was nice. It was nice to actually open up the conversation.
But it was led by you. Dele, I think you said it was led by you and also some of your colleagues. So there's a different perspective. And Sajna, how about you? What was the point you were going to make there?
The greatest progressive thing that happened for me is my white colleagues, friends, or people that I've been associating with really admitting that white privilege exists. That was something that was a challenge for me to explain in the past. I used to go around, and you know me, Beth, white male and stale really openly, and there would be some people who would absolutely get it. Some people like Andrew Holbert would get it, understand, and there would be some leaders who would silence me, saying that is really offensive. Please don't repeat that. So now, I could actually explain what white privilege is because of the amount of people who have reached out and really started to ask for reference of what books should they read and stuff like that. So it's reaching out of how can we educate ourselves, but we're not here to educate people, and that's it is your
exactly. Exactly.
That's one I want to touch as well.
Go on, Dele.
I have been approached and asked questions that I have no clue about. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I know everything. I am someone who's also learning from this whole experience and holding from the black.
Did you not read the book, Dele?
Are you not black? No, I am black, but I'm also learning. I have things to learn about my ancestors and things that happened in the past, or the history behind it. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I know everything that's going on. I know, I'm seeking the knowledge the same way everyone else is, and the same way everyone else should be seeking it as well. you know, I haven't read it yet, but I've come across a book called White Fragility.
Okay.
And I really think that is something that highlights what Sajna was talking about, you know, white privilege and why you may not think as a white person you're racist, but there is, as you said, Beth, unconscious racism that you don't know about, you know, uneducated racism that you're not sure about.
Yeah.
And these are the things that discussions alleviate, you know, having these open discussions.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
one thing I do want to say though is it can't be like even if I put myself in the shoes of a middle-aged white man as well, sometimes it can't be easy, in the sense of there might be a feeling of everything feels like it's slipping away from us, and they have a sense of feeling guilty until proven innocent, because they might be by some other people as well, like targeted as, no, you're racist until you prove to me that you're not racist as well. So I do try to when I have conversations with people, I do try to do it as open as possible and give someone an open lane as possible, because sometimes people are products of their environment where they grew up. I spent 2.5 years on shift with a guy from South Africa, and he was a white man from South Africa, and we went through our cultural differences, and we did our tango of understanding each other and learning each other's cultures and trying to understand each other a little bit better, because I'm sure if you took him back 15-20 years, he would never have imagined being on shift and spending half of his life with a black guy. And he moved from South Africa to UK when apartheid happened, and he moved to Brixton, and that was a culture shock for him then. And then he moved to Welling, I suppose, maybe to get away from it, and then went on shift with me. So but we became really close friends, and we spoke about some stuff, and it was, you have to kind of understand where people are coming from as well, instead of, and that's something that I will say, and I do say to a lot of my black pals and colleagues and that as well, is we also have to understand where people are coming from, how they were raised, and what their level of understanding is as well, because you can't just say, right, this person's racist because they're not doing, or because they're not, because people need time to learn and understand as well, you know what I mean?
But they have to be open to that, Reo. That's the point.
Well, that's the thing. It's being open to something, and open to how something makes somebody else feel. Because that's just a better way as a human being, isn't it?
Listen, I would like to not finish, but I'd like to move us towards wrapping this up by giving some support and help to help people get better at this and to help people understand better. So you've given us brilliant information, but in terms of what people can take away from this, a kind of call to action. There you go, as a call to action. What are we saying then? So we're saying, acknowledge there's an issue. Dele, your point about to be silent is to be complicit. All of you have said, you know, encourage open discussion. Reo, your example of working with your South African colleague, I think is a brilliant example. You know, ask the questions. Dele, you were saying, you know, don't be embarrassed to ask the questions, open up the dialogue. One of the things that we also discussed before we started filming was this document I have in front of me, which is the Race at Work report that was done by Ruby McGregor-Smith. It's called the McGregor-Smith Review. I was saying to the guys, to you guys before we went live, that there was a 2018 review from the first report that showed, and I'm going to show it to the screen. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but you can see all the different elements that were talked about, and anything that's an orange dot means that nothing changed in that year period. If it's green, it improved. If it's red, it got worse. And I would recommend everyone who's watching this video, if you want to try and make a difference, if you want to try and improve things in your workplace, have a look at that report, just Google it and you'll find it, Race at Work. And it gives you tangible actions that everyone should have as a management plan to try and put some of these things in place. And one of the things, Dele, that you referred to was the mandatory unconscious bias training. And before we went live, I was saying how important I think certainly that is, just to get people to understand what they don't understand, you know. Sajna, do you want to make any points on that?
Well, I would question some of these unconscious bias training because I've been through it, and has it helped? That's a conversation for another day. But my message is to both sides, actually, it is what I talked about earlier about self-inventory and not positive mindset, is the mindset, is
limiting beliefs,
the limiting beliefs and smashing through those limited beliefs, because I believe opportunities are there if you can see it. And representation is absolutely important for me, because that's how Tomorrow Meets Today was born, is the lack of representation. Because really, FM is the most colorful industry, you know, compared to other industry, but it stops at senior level, and that's the change that I want to work towards.
Okay, Reo, final thoughts from you.
Right, so my takeaways are, if you're a black person, young black guy or black person watching this, then you can get somewhere in the industry, and you just, hard work is, we know we're supposed to do that, but that's in general. And I'd say that to any of my staff or anyone I work with, the hard work side of things, it's important, and understanding what you're doing, understanding what your company does, and that's how you get promoted, that's how you move forward. The more you understand, for me, that's how you move forward. And then to the white man watching this, in that sense, there's two things from any level. Is it's okay to start the conversation even if you know nothing about it, because it lets a man know that you're saying I acknowledge and I understand, and that can be how you start the conversation. Look, I've seen what's going on. How does it make you feel? I know nothing about this, but how does it make you feel? It just shows you care. And that will go a long way, and that gives a lot of buy-in, because you get a certain level of loyalty and dedication from a black man when he's at work. And the other side of it is to acknowledge that black man that works for you feels like there's a glass ceiling. So make him feel like there's not. If that's what you truly believe, if you're in a senior position and you've got a black guy that works for you, 9 times out of 10, that is how he's going to be feeling. So do what you can to make him feel like it's not there if you believe it's not there.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. Dele, has he stolen your thunder? Have you got anything left?
No, I honestly, all I can do is second that. I mean, if you are in a position of leadership or management, just look at your leadership team, look at who is influencing your team, and look around you and see, is everyone being represented? Am I doing my part? I mean, we said in our statement, it doesn't matter how big or small your platform is, we can voice our opinions and we can make change. If you are in a position of leadership or management and you can see that not everyone is being represented, and you are part of that, you have a duty to have that discussion. You have a duty, if you are in that position of management or leadership, to have that discussion with your peers and then bring it down towards your own companies or towards your own following groups. I think something like this, Beth, I have to thank you as well for something like this, for having a discussion like this, because this is something, these are the first steps that happen. Having a discussion, as Reo said, having that discussion with your black colleague, because you can see that it's happening, and you can see that your friend or colleague is a part of this, and they will be affected. Have that discussion. Do not if you can't have it with them, take it up with your manager, take it up with your mentor, someone that you can have a discussion with. You know, someone that you can bring your own opinions to. You know, bring it, if you have to do it anonymously, go towards someone and say, I don't think this is fair. Go towards your mentor, your manager that you can speak to, you know, in confidence.
Brilliant. Thank you, you three. What a fantastic chat. I'm going to look at the camera. I hope everyone has stayed with us to listen to this, because I think it's incredibly important. And I am just grateful for your time. We've been on the call for a long time and you've given me your time. So can I say a huge thank you? Sajna, thank you to you. Dele, thank you ever so much to you, and Reo, thank you to you, and hopefully we'll get some interesting comments. And my pleasure, and we'll get some good engagement. So guys, listen, thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye for now. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.